Hello, my name is Caitlin, and I'm going to be telling you guys about the Babington Plot. So at the time, Elizabeth I was Queen of England. She was the Protestant daughter of King Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn, his second wife. She had a pretty prosperous rule, which is lovingly referred to as the Elizabethan Age. Some notable things she did were defeating the Spanish Armada in 1588, maintaining peace inside her divided country, and the arts flourished under her rule. She is also called the Virgin Queen because she never married. To contrast Elizabeth, Mary Queen of Scots was super Catholic, and she eventually had to flee Scotland because of some uprisings. So she went to England, expecting to be welcomed into the loving arms of her cousins. It didn't go that well. Elizabeth was happy to let Mary stay, but her advisors encouraged Elizabeth to be more wary and convinced Elizabeth to put Mary under house arrest. But after Mary's sort of involvement in the Throckmorton plot, which was a different plot to kill Elizabeth, she was placed under stricter house arrest, and the rest is history. But not really, because a new plot was brewing, the Babington Plot. This plot was devised by Anthony Babington, who was a victim of having too much time and money on his hands. He was like, well, I'm Catholic and I have nothing better to do, let's just kill the Queen and replace her with Mary. And that was the overall plot. Kill Elizabeth, free Mary, and make England Catholic again. But Babington was up against Sir Francis Walsingham, Elizabeth's spymaster, secretary, and head of national security. He had a huge spy network and was itching to use it, and Babington gave him the perfect opportunity. Babington's genius plan was that he was going to get a major Catholic foreign power to storm England, then 6 of his buds would kill Elizabeth. Finally, they'd all break into Chartley Hall, where Mary was currently being kept, and free her. But Babington wanted Mary's approval of all of this. The only problem was that Mary was banned from having correspondence with anyone. So Babington needed a way to hide the letters and somehow get them into Chartley Hall. And he came up with a plan. The messages were going to be crammed into the bung of one of the many wine barrels that were delivered to Chartley Hall. But Babington worried this wouldn't be enough. So they used a cipher. This specific cipher was a substitution cipher, so each letter or common phrase was replaced with a symbol. There are tons of substitution ciphers, but the one Babington used, it was only known among some Catholic elite, so he knew Mary would be able to understand it and decode the letters. Now, I know what you're thinking. This plan is genius. How on earth did it go so wrong? Well, they would have gotten away with it if it weren't for those meddling Protestants. The main problem was that Babington and Mary shouldn't have trusted anyone else besides themselves. But Gilbert Gifford, a courier at Chartley Hall, was the one who put the letters in the wine barrels. Now, remember at the beginning when I mentioned that Walsingham had a huge spy network? Yeah, Gilbert was a double agent and was secretly working for Walsingham. He would make his own copy of all the letters that Babington and Mary exchanged. Then he would send the letters to Walsingham, but the letters were still ciphered, so they brought in Thomas Phillips. This dude was the first famous English code breaker, and he used letter frequency analysis where he took the most common letters used in the English language and matched them to the most common symbols used in the letter to break the letter code in like a week. Without this frequency analysis, it would have taken forever for him to cipher this code, or for him to decipher this code. These letters gave hard evidence of Mary and Babington's plot. Mary's letters said things like, when all is ready, 6 gentlemen must be set to work, and when it is accomplished, I may in some way be gotten from here, and will await foreign assistance. This talks about the 6 gentlemen going to kill Elizabeth, Mary escaping, and getting foreign aid. Things were looking down from Babington and everyone else involved. Because after Thomas broke the code, he forged a letter to Babington pretending to be Mary, and he asked for a list of everyone involved with the plot, which Babington happily gave him. So yeah, Babington and all of his associates were screwed. After their trials, where basically all of them were found guilty, they were subjected to, but not limited to, getting hanged on the gibbet, cut down while still alive, their private parts chopped off in front of them, they were eviscerated, their entrails were burned in front of them, they were disemboweled, and finally executed and quartered. In fact, after this happened to them, Elizabeth was rumored to have asked, is there anything else? As in, can we torture them more? But Walsingham assured her that this would be enough. Then there's Mary, who was put on trial because Elizabeth was hesitant to kill her. Not only was Mary her cousin, but Elizabeth was also worried that God would punish her for killing Mary. Throughout the trial, Mary had the audacity to plead not guilty. She denied having any part in the plot. But then her letters were read out loud at the trial, and it was a guaranteed conviction for her. Her execution was totally botched, too. The executioner took 3 swings with his axe before her head was severed off her body. But compared to what happened to Babington, that doesn't seem so bad. It is also said that her lips moved for 15 minutes after her head was chopped off, which is a bit creepy. As for sourcing, all of these seem pretty accurate because the information was consistent among all the platforms I used for research, and they're mostly based on the information given by primary sources, like the actual letters. And since there are still copies of Mary and Babington's letters, this event obviously actually happened. And of course, examining the actual letters for yourself is the best way to go. But websites like Britannica and Wikipedia are still good sources for getting more concrete information and for things to go in more detail. The wider significance of this event is that Mary's death was the final straw for King Philip II of Spain to summon the Spanish Armada against England. It also kept the Stuart dynasty on the throne until Elizabeth's death, which is when Mary's son James VI became King James I of England. And lastly, Thomas Phillips's work was the first landmark in British code breaking and led to great future cryptographic achievements of the Royal Navy in World War I and later in World War II. The major values of this event displays is the intense value of religion, because the main reason why this plot was devised was to restore Protestant England to Catholicism. Power was also a major value because Mary was very power hungry and really wanted to become Queen of England, which led to her downfall. And lastly, loyalty was a major value shown. Walsingham needed to depend on the loyalty of his spies, like Grifford, to get information from Chartley Hall, along with showing that those who aren't loyal pay the price, just like with Babington and his associates. And here's my work cited. Thank you for listening.